Hello. Good morning. Happy, is it Tuesday already? Yeah, it is Tuesday.
It is. You believe it?
No, I'm lost because yesterday was a holiday for us. So I'm like
Oh,
starting the week. It was Thanksgiving yesterday because Canadian
oh,
is.
happy Thanksgiving.
For here, for us, I don't know if it's just like culturally, but for us, it's just like we have a long weekend, but no one really cares about the fact
Oh,
that it's just like long weekend. It's like the last long weekend before everything gets frigid and, kind of enjoy it.
yeah. Tell me about it.
Yeah. If you're just joining us now, welcome. I'm doing this live today with Holly Brown. I'm really excited about it. We're going to talk about processes and hopefully make it not boring. That's the hope. That's what we promised. I think we have really good stuff. And if you're just joining us now, let us know where you guys are from, what kind of business or what kind of entrepreneur you are. If you're like a freelancer, what you're doing, how many employees. I think this is kind of, really agnostic in terms of it applies to a lot of people. And I think it would be interesting for us to know who you are and what you're doing. And then we can maybe tailor it a bit more to
Yeah.
your specific needs if you're wanting to share. I think it would be kind of cool to have some real life use cases as well in there. We have some that we have prepared, but if some of you guys want to hop in, that would be really cool. If you have questions at any point, feel free to post them in the comments. We're gonna review and answer your questions, but also just it's nice to know that some people are there and feel like we have value. I guess. That's my hope.
Share it with you.
Yes. Do you want to take a minute to introduce yourself, Holly?
Yeah, definitely. So, it is great to be able to sit down with you this morning. Really looking forward to our talk. I am on the end of the spectrum where I love processes. I am an executive assistant. I have worked with small business owners for the past several years, and I tell you what, like processes make or break companies at times. And so just really looking
We
forward
are
to
not biased at all.
yeah, no, not at all. No. but but yeah, I worked with small business owners, typically under the $5 million range. I've worked with some solopreneurs and helping them grow their teams. I've worked with some companies locally, some worldwide. So I have a whole lot of different experiences, and so I've seen a lot of what works and many that don't.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
cool. It's a good way to start off, I think. We got a couple of people commenting already. There's Diane who is joining us from Montreal. It is sunny today, which is kind of cool actually. And there's another comment from David that is on LinkedIn, but it's not showing up in here for some reason. But hi, welcome. I'm happy. I'm happy to be here. This was, I think, something that I've wanted to do for a long time, and I think it's cool that I wanted to find someone to do it with because I figured there's so much to unpack. We're gonna try and do this in like 45-ish minutes and not be completely overwhelming. The point is to make it simple, stupid. um I think you had interesting point of views on that, because for me processes are like this thing that I do all, and the reason for this live is that it's something that I do a lot that I can't it's hard to talk about, I guess, because the transformation of implementing processes is kind of in some cases a bit like it's a long tail thing, but it also is something so boring that most people don't want to be bothered, but super
Yeah.
valuable.
And it's not the glamorous part, right? The great part is the outcomes. Look at what we accomplished. It's so great. But no one wants to talk about all the work it took to get there,
Yeah.
make that outcome happen again and again and again.
Yes, exactly. And I feel like for me, a lot of the things that people associate my work with processes in a lot of ways. I've worked with a lot of companies, some as small as like, some freelancers, but I've
Mhm.
worked with bigger companies that do, upwards of like 50 mil. And I think the implementation of those or the manifestations of what processes are and look like is wildly different.
Mhm.
So I just think it's super interesting to kind of talk about these different touch points and all. Hopefully my computer just crashed. Um, are you still seeing me properly?
I
Okay.
see you.
My
Yeah.
LinkedIn just crashed. I'm not sure why. Okay, well, it seems to be back. I'm sorry about that. Just computer went gray and I was like, what's happening? Cool. I'm back. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah. So today, as the advertisement said, we're trying to make that processes for dummies. So how do we make it as simple as possible? How do we make it as implement, like the goal is for you guys to leave today and have something that you can actually bring home with you and like do it in 5 minutes, and not this becoming a 3 month ERP, or I mean, I was going to say ERP, but this is not like you guys implementing an ERP, which is like going to be a year-long project. This is the completely opposite. We were like, hey, there's this thing that's creating friction. Let's fix it in 5 minutes. So I figured we could start by, maybe clarifying a bit what's a process, because I feel like that's the daunting part. And if we could make it non-daunting for people who are here today, I think that would be a really good win. Do you want to start?
Sure. Well, I like to think of processes kind of as you're driving a car, right? So you have policy, process, and procedure, right? Those are like the 3 P's of how you do things.
Yeah.
And something that I thought of, and feel free to give me your thoughts. The policy is like the curb, right? Like everything you do, like when you drive, you stay in the curb. The curb holds you and holds your vehicle inside, so you're not driving on the sidewalk,
Yes.
running people over. And then the process is like actually driving the car, right? Like I'm driving down the road. And then the procedures are like, I, click the turn signal down to turn left. I, turn the little knob here to turn on the windshield wipers. I, shift gears to move forward or backwards. And so those are kind of like how I have thought about those 3 P's. So the process is just like driving the car. But there's a lot that goes into driving.
I mean, if you just look at the process of learning to drive a car,
yeah,
like there's so many different things you have to think about when you start, and you're just like overwhelmed because you forgot you change your blind spot and do these things. And then, but when you get to a point where you've been driving the car for a long time, a lot of those things become like reflexes almost.
Exactly.
And I feel like in a lot of ways, businesses are kind of the same. There's like a lot of things you don't know, and you're like, oh, like if you look at, paying an invoice, is like something that's super stupid or simple. That could probably be done in 3 seconds. And you're like, well, why would I need to make a process for paying an invoice? But like if you start and you're like a freelancer and you have to pay 2 invoices every month, versus you get to a point where you have an agency with 500 employees, like, and then this is a real life example. I have a friend who was VP. She was CFO for the company, and she had 9 people on payroll full time whose jobs were to pay invoices. So the scale of how you pay an invoice changes drastically, right? Like the decisions that are involved are not the same as just like, oh, log in, pay the thing, be done, right? There's like approbation, like you need to make sure the invoice is correct and all these things. And in a lot of cases, those things you don't know that those are going to be issues you have until you have them, right? Like it's like when you look at the warnings on like a product and there's like, liquid paper, like do not smoke or whatever. You're like, someone did that.
Exactly.
And I feel like processes are that. It's just like a list of reminders, basically. It was like, if someone comes in and they don't know what they don't know, you want to make it as dumb proof as possible for someone who has no clue how this company works to be able to come and run the place, basically, right?
Yep.
And I find that there's like, we were talking about this a couple of weeks ago because we both have young kids, and the whole, I mean, I was going to say the process of getting ready for school, that's a process, like I wake up in the morning, we need to have breakfast, we need to get dressed, we need to put the shoes on and do all these things. There's like a list of things that need to happen for a certain outcome to happen.
Yep.
And those are processes too. And I mean, they're not like documented or whatever. Maybe they are.
Yeah, they're just second nature by now.
Yeah. But I think the thing that's daunting, I feel, is like this image of, if you're looking at Fortune 500, and I think a lot of people, especially at the stage that I work in, like if you're looking at the, $1 to $5 million sweet spot, like in terms of entrepreneurship, I think people have this idea that processes mean rigidity. Things are going to become rigid and then they can't move anymore. And people assume that it's going to slow down things.
Yeah, or that it won't leave any room for personalization.
Yeah. And I feel like it's the opposite for me.
I agree.
I think if you have no processes today and you're like, there's these 5 things that I do every week, and you document these. Like the first thing I did when I hired a VA, and I'm sure you could speak about that a ton, and how maybe you kind of start a project with a client and how that structure for the onboarding works, right? Because for me, it was like I hired this woman and I was like, cool, here's these 3 things I want you to do. And then I just started realizing all of these things I could have her done. And I basically just like recorded myself, created a small process, and it was like, here's the task. And now there's just like this insane amount of things that I was doing myself that I don't have to do anymore because someone else is doing them for me. But that only happened because I sat down and took the time to document a series of processes, basically.
Yeah, and that makes it scalable. You know, like if you are doing something different, like you're doing the same thing. Like, you know, let's say that we're getting ready for school in the morning. Like we need a routine. I'm guessing your little one does too. Right? We need a routine, and my kids have it down pat by now. But if we did something different every morning, like breakfast first, or brush your teeth first, or getting dressed first, or coming downstairs first, if we changed that every time it was time to get ready for school, we would never get anywhere. We would never be able to, you know, become more efficient. It would always be chaos.
Yes.
Right. And it's the same with processes. Like you will be able to scale if you are repeatable.
So how do you go about it? Because we've talked about what it is and the different manifestations, but like, what does that look like for you when you like hired, like you get hired by someone and you do the onboarding process? Do they typically have a bunch of process documented? Is it your job to kind of figure out what those things are and document them? Like, how do you go about initial build?
Yeah. There has been 2 clients that I've worked with that had some forms of processes written down.
Yeah.
No one else has. And so a lot of what I've been able to do in my work, like as an ops assistant and an ops lead, is figure out like, okay, what are we doing that is a process? What are we doing more than once? Let's write these down. Okay. And then we can start fleshing them out. You know, and so often what I will do is just like set up the bones. I like to use a project management software. And so I will just like set up the steps, and then I can go back and add any of the pieces that I'm missing, you know, especially when I'm coming in and learning about all the things, and asking questions like, is this step necessary? Or why are we not doing this other step that you don't have in this process? And so just kind of the time it gives to build. So the processes themselves always kind of evolve if things change, but they're still the same, you know, there's still the same core process of what happens.
Do you have like a software? You said you use a software, a project management. Like, do you have like a core one that you love and you use for everybody, or you kind of adapt to whatever company you're using?
Asana is my favorite. In part because it is the least complex.
The learning curve is pretty low.
Right. And so it makes it so easy. Yet it's also so easy to customize and create the automations that work for me and for my teams. So I recommend Asana to all of my clients. Some implement and some don't. And you know, but I've used Teamwork project management. That one's pretty cool. That one is a little more robust, so it has some really cool things you can do. But yeah, I've been in Suite Process. Not my favorite. It's harder for my brain to kind of read through the layout in Suite Process. Do you have a favorite?
I use Asana a lot for project management, but for processes, I think, I mean, I love Excel. I love the simplicity of it, because you could basically build it to be whatever you want. And I don't want to create these daunting things that are like, you know, rule books of 40 pages that no one is ever going to read again, because this is like just a waste of everybody's time. I feel like there are some use cases where a digital copy is not ideal. Like, you know, if you're looking at a restaurant kind of thing where you have like we used to have closing lists on the wall that were literally just like a piece of paper that was like plastified, and then you have like check boxes, like the bathrooms and the, you know.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
gas stations,
Yep.
um, where it's really just like, hey, this is the thing you need to go to do for your clothes. And
Mhm.
in some cases, a process that it doesn't need to be as complicated as it needs. Like you don't need to make it complicated for the sake of it. The checklist on the wall is perfectly fine.
Mhm.
Um, and I think in a lot of cases, there's for sure the reason people are scared that processes are going to be heavy is because there's plenty of use cases and examples of processes that are too heavy for no reason. Like
Yeah.
it's a valid
Sure.
concern because it exists.
Mhm.
Um, and especially if you're looking at all those red tapey kind of government bodies where they're like, well, no
Yeah.
one's in charge, but everyone, like those things are real. And
Mhm.
I think if we can take examples on all those heavy things that we don't want and build something super simple that gets the job done, that's perfect, right? Like
Mhm.
the end goal is to save you some time and
Yep.
reduce the margins of errors, right?
Yep.
So
Exactly.
you could do that with a checklist on the wall. Go. Like you have no reason to make this into a big binder.
Yes.
Um, Especially because the binder is gonna get lost and broken and whatever, right? So
Uh-huh. Yeah.
um I think, you know, if we kind of go back to this idea that you're trying to simplify people's lives, like I think the building of it is like this whole other thing, but just starting by making a mental note of like these are the things I do a lot, and then or where are the things that are complicated that people,
Mhm.
like if you were to basically, like if you were to build like a help desk for your business, right? What are the questions that the people have a lot? It's like you're building like an FAQ kind of.
Yep.
And a lot I think there are some use cases if you're looking at, I mean, what are the things that the balls that get dropped a lot, and then you start there. I think
Mhm.
that's
That's a
probably
great idea. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I think it's also important though to think about like what do you do the most and what's the easiest maybe for you to do
yeah,
and where are the balls and like just kind of finding that balance because you don't want to get overwhelmed by
yeah, of course,
like these are all the hard things like oh my goodness, like give
yeah,
yourself a little win here and then go tackle this, the ball that's getting dropped.
sure.
And so, finding those, that's what I found to work for me. So I'm
Mhm.
like, whew, that one was exhausting.
You showed me a document earlier. I have like my template that I wanted to share also. But I thought maybe we could kind of both take turns of like showing like the simple stupid version of what we're doing. Like
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of processes and I obviously can't share all of them because some of them are my clients.
Yeah.
But I've had and this version that I have now, I could share you the template is wow, the layout is super weird. Oh, it's because now it's actually. Okay. So basically, this is super light version of something that I've copied from a client that I had at some point. Where the idea is because some people learn and understand things by
Mhm.
reading, and some people
Yep.
do by watching videos or
Yep.
listening. So this one, my idea was to have everything. So I usually start my creation process by recording myself on Loom or whatever, just
Mhm.
explaining something. Sometimes it's like click here, do this, do whatever, right? And then I'm gonna break it down into this Excel spreadsheet where I'm just gonna give you all of the possible answers to every possible question you have. This one here, this is like my real process that I started creating for my onboarding for my
Mhm.
clients. And
Okay.
this is probably one of my arguably like the most, I guess, complicated one because there's multiple steps. So
Yep.
like every step is technically a client, like a
Mhm.
step. Sorry, every process there's like multiple processes in here where the
Yep.
overall process when you onboard a client, you have to make the contract, get them to sign the contract, send an invoice, create the Google Drive for that
Mhm.
client, send the onboarding email. So all of those things are process of their own,
Mhm.
and then there would be a video. But like if you're gonna just go on, this is like a empty template, and there's like a mix of French and English in here for some reason. But the the logic for it was I want the things again. If we're going back for this idea that someone doesn't have the understanding of what the terminology you're going to use or whatever, right? you don't know how to find what you're looking for because you don't know what exists or what doesn't exist. So what I like about this is you can organize them. So I
Nice.
love color coding things. So
Yeah. Yeah.
theoretically, I'm going to start with department-based colors. So like
Okay.
all the sales processes will be together, and then operations, accounting are blue, and then I have ups again because this is
Nice.
a template. But then you could see everything that exists, and then in here you would also have the link to the video, which is not here
Mhm.
yet because I haven't done that one. That was like the most complete example because I started working on these a while ago, and I would basically just record a bunch of videos, put the video there, and then tell my VA, watch the video, and then you do the process.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's like another layer when you have someone to help you.
Yeah,
Uh,
and that works out really well a lot of the times because it's so, especially when you're working online, right? Like a
yeah,
video may not be as great, like if you're the cashier at the grocery store, a
no,
video of how to do that may not be the best. But especially when you're working online, it's so helpful for me to like know where to click, and then I can raise a
yes,
flag, be like, hey, you clicked on this button in your video, but I don't have that button, and that's like, oh,
yes,
something, let's make sure that we get it squared away so you can get done what you need to get done. But yeah, it's so helpful because I'm like, is this the right thing? It's what the instructions say, but there are like two options, and so it is so
yeah.
helpful. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of options. I think as far as documenting processes, like I mean, I typically just use like a Loom
Hmm.
or like a Vidyard, which is
Yep.
similar, and then document those. I've tested other tools. Like there's this software called Scribe, where it's basically like screen recording, and then it documents where you click. But it says
Oh,
click here,
fancy.
click there, click there. But then there's still like some work that where you have to kind of go after and um add the context, or like click on the name of the button or whatever. What I found was missing, and why I like video more, is that when you're explaining the video, you can explain what you're doing beyond just clicking, but also the rationale
Mhm.
for it, right?
Exactly.
So sometimes I would do some videos for a client, and I was explaining my process for vetting people on LinkedIn, for example, and then I would explain in the thing, oh, I also look at this here because I
Mhm.
like to know if this,
Mhm.
which is not a thing that's necessarily easy to explain in a process
The
version of text,
written, yeah.
where it's like, make sure you read this, make sure you read that, make sure you read this, and then there's like six important things and you lose them in the noise, right?
Yep.
um and like another thing that and this is not because I'm trying to preach for my own, like toot my own horn or anything, but I find that I have a client that I worked with who uses Asana for their
Mhm.
processes, and I would really love to show you the processes right now, but I can't. But basically the navigation was really hard because they created the tasks in Asana as a process, which my main first concern I had was you click on a process and there's like 12 different tasks and each task is a step. But if you
Mhm.
click the task, it disappears.
Oh,
So if it's your process and your process, you have like this giant list and you
yep.
click it and it disappears, you lose like the structural integrity of your process because you don't know if someone clicked the task and then the task is gone. So
Yeah,
maybe the
I
next
see.
person who does the process
I
is
get you.
skipping an important step, right?
Yep.
And then the organization of all those processes was like super. I mean, you have operation board, and then on the operation board, you have processes for 60 different things. And it's like, how
Mhm.
do you find what you're looking for? How do you know that it even exists?
Mhm.
And like, I work with Trello, and Asana has a similar problem, I guess, is like, if you don't know the exact terminology of what you're looking for, you're never going to find it,
Mhm.
right? Because Trello is very finicky in that regard, where it's like if you write, keyboard and they wrote, something else, it's not going to pop. Um,
Oh, frustrating. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and one thing that I have found to be a useful piece, especially when we're working with multiple people,
mhm,
is just having a glossary. Like when
mm,
I say keyboard, this is what I mean. Or when I say, SOP or, whatever it may be,
yeah,
just like this is what I mean. And so when you're working with this company, we're all speaking the same language, and it just
yes,
removes kind of that, breaks down that barrier, like a language barrier, so to
yes,
speak.
for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think it's super useful. Especially like if you go at I mean, I wouldn't say there's like bad examples or good examples. I mean, some examples, I think some use cases are better than others. I've also worked with a client who is using this version of the Excel I just showed you, but
Mhm.
like kind of supercharge it to a level where there's like so much information. Like there was a video tutorial for every task in the thing,
Mhm.
and each video was like 30 to 40 minutes long. And then you're
Oh,
like, this is a thing
that's
that should take you 5 minutes.
pretty intense. Yeah.
Yes. And I was like, I see how valuable that is because you have the brain, like the knowledge. So
Mhm.
basically what the guy would do is he would like set up a Google Meet with someone to teach him how to do a thing and then record the meet and then dump that into the processes,
Oh, I
which
see. Yeah.
makes complete sense, right? From
Yeah.
an efficiency purposes. But I think there's like a concern where you're getting lost in details, right? It's like,
Yeah.
sure, there's some make sure this or like because I mean Canada Post is on strike right now, right? So the client had processes for what to happen, what to do if they're on strike
Mm.
because it
Mhm.
happened before. And in our cases, we're really unlucky. It's the second time in like 6 months.
Mhm.
It's a shit show. But the point was that they documented 12 different processes for a potential strike.
Yeah.
It's like you have them, cool, but they shouldn't be upfront the first thing you read about when you're onboarding a new employee because it's like a
Sure.
very specific use case that might never happen again.
Right, right.
Um,
Well, and I think to your point about the video tutorials, like they are so incredibly helpful, right? Like I love Looms. I'm a huge fan. But I think you're right. There's that opportunity just to get carried away. Like, look at this and oh, like and then you just get so far kind of down this rabbit trail while you're doing it on the video that you kind of lose that succinct, this
yes.
is what you do, this is what we're looking for. Get this part done so you can move on to the next
If
task in the
your
process.
video is 30 minutes, it's because you have more things in there than just one process.
Right, yeah, a
If your
loom should be, like,
process
less
takes
than 5.
yes, absolutely. Oh, I agree. That's why Loom is 5 minutes. Like the free
A loom
version,
is 5 minutes,
it's
yep,
5 minutes.
yep,
And my rule is if you can't fit it in 5 minutes, it should be multiple videos.
yeah,
So then, like my process for the client onboarding, I would have one tutorial for how to create the Google Drive, one tutorial for this thing, and then
mhm,
it's like you can record all of the video at once, but then just cut the video in a bunch of tiny
sure,
bits. You
yeah,
know. So then,
yeah,
if
and it
I'm
makes it so
looking,
much easier to find like, if I'm lost on one step, like, I'm like, "Gosh, I don't remember how to do the contract part, I got the Google Drive all set up." I don't want to have to sift through half an
40 minutes
hour
video,
to
yeah,
find, like, the 40 seconds that I'm looking for, you know?
yeah. I'm
Yeah,
sure there's like some kind of version of a world where you could kind of create like an AI agent that has all the
mhm,
documentations of your company. And I'm sure some companies do that actually.
yep,
Like now I'm saying it,
absolutely,
I'm like absolutely exists.
yeah,
And they're like, here's all the things you need to do and like
yeah,
have the AI teach you how to do it instead of, like have because I think, you know, corporate documentation in general is just the bigger you get, like the more complex the use cases are. And I
yep,
think the other big risk, like, is and it's kind of a good segue, I think, in our next topic, um, where you create a process one time and then you don't ever touch it again.
right,
So how do you make sure that those things are still relevant and that they're being used? Because theoretically, you could say, well, I taught myself how to do this. I don't need to open the process again. And then
mhm,
there's a point where you're like 6 months from now and the process is outdated because you've changed the way you do the thing. And then there's a new person and they have no clue how to do the task.
mhm, yep.
So, like, how do you prevent those things from happening? For example, like in your use cases right now, like, what do you do about it?
I mean, what I have done in like my regular real life is just setting a time aside to audit my processes.
Sure.
So I might check our client onboarding process once a month. Like, hey, is this still up to date? And the next month might be like team member onboarding or, sending the invoices or creating a new customer in QuickBooks. I'm
Mhm.
like, hey, are these all still accurate? So I just try to make it a somewhat regular cadence to audit all of our processes. Not like all at once, just like
Yeah.
one at maximum, probably one a week, because otherwise I could just spend my whole work week auditing processes and then never actually using them.
Are those processing that you're okay? Do you audit the processes you're using, or are you like, let's say you're creating processes for other people?
Mm.
Shouldn't they be the one in charge of auditing those processes now?
Um, the person who is actually running the play for sure needs a say. Now, sometimes what I'll do with my executives is I'll be like, hey, I'll add it to our agenda when we meet. Like, hey, I just want to run over this. Is this all still the same? It is great. Okay. And then we can just, put it back on the shelf for them to use. But then if there are any changes, and so I just like as an EA, I try to be proactive in bringing those up to my executives, for example. But also kind of as a team lead, I'm like, hey, you
Mm.
guys, like, I just want to make sure that this is still the way that it's being done, because I want to make sure that um, you have what you need and that it's repeatable, if someone else needs to step in and run the play also.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Is a big part of your job focused more on, because I mean, this is obviously something you spend a lot of time on, like on a average week, I'm assuming.
Mm-hmm.
Um, is there like an amount of time where you're like, I'm doing these things and it's kind of like there's no purpose? Like, if you ever worked on implementations of stuff like that and you're like, this is a giant waste of my time, like what
Yes.
happened?
Yes, I have. And what frustrates me the most is when I sink time into creating a process. I go and I figure out what everyone is doing,
Yeah.
and I write it all down and I get it all dialed in, and I'm like, this is great. They're gonna love it. And I do it all, and then it's like, well, wait, why aren't you using this process that I made? Like, it's right here. Just use, here it
Mhm.
is. Just use it. And like that gets me so like bummed out, because I'm like, I put a lot of work into this and it's all right. So like there's no reason not to use it. So yeah, that gets me
What
that
happens? Why does it happen?
because just like you said, people know how to do it in their head, so they just go and do it. Or they might say like, this was important, and so I just got it done, and there was this adjustment that I needed to do because it was different for this client outside of our norm, and so I just did it.
So it's
And
like they don't want to delegate kind of thing?
um none I'm not talking about that at the moment. That
Mm,
does happen.
mm,
But what I'm talking about is like, hey, if I have, like, let's say we're onboarding a new client, right? I have
mm.
a thorough but not overwhelming. It's just like
Yeah.
make the, create the invoice. Like, I don't go into log into QuickBooks, click new customer, like I don't go that far. It's just like, hey, go create the invoice. And so I have that all built. All the steps are there.
Yeah.
And so then if my executive needed to step in and run that play instead of me,
Mm,
I'm like, hey, all the steps are here. And when you don't check off that these are done, so we use Asana, so we can, click complete, or leave comments like,
yeah.
that's stuck here, or waiting on,
Yes.
waiting on this other thing. I'm like, I cannot help you unless I actually know where things are standing.
Sure.
And so, but he's like, well, I just got it all done. But you didn't, because you missed this step that was in
Yeah.
the process. And now we have to backpedal a little bit to fix these up. And so it's just like we're doing things over, a couple things over, because we missed like just one thing.
Yeah.
So again, kind of as an EA, what I'm coming in to do is hold my executives accountable, and like, hey, you asked for this because you knew that it would make things more consistent. Our clients are going to benefit when we're doing the same thing, when we know what we're doing. And so I need you to use this. I've
Yeah.
updated it already with what I know, but I need you to come in and, flesh out the rest of it and
Yeah.
on where things are. So it is delicate. I'm
Yeah.
not out to like I
No, I
don't
get it.
as pointing fingers, but they are there for a reason. Someone just said to me, who was it? Someone I just talked to the other day said, oh, my kids' principal said, if it's important enough to have a rule, it's important enough to follow it. And the same thing goes for processes.
Mm, that's a good point. I
Yeah.
feel like in my use cases, there's a lot of clients that I've worked with or implement like CRM implementations, like if you just
Mhm.
look at that, right?
Mhm.
Um, where I've been like same as processes. I feel like, I mean, in some ways, CRMs are not sexy. No one wants to be bothered.
They're
Everyone
the
knows it's
least
important, but no
favorite
one wants.
thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I often end up in a position where I'm building this whole thing and then I'm like setting up all these rules and having all these
Mhm.
conversations with the client to like, okay, explain to me what the process is, what happens if this, what happens if that. And then we take the time to basically take everything out of their heads and put it in
Mhm.
there. Because often they're like, my sales rep are not this, my sales rep are not that. I don't have whatever, right?
Yep.
Um, and then I set it up and I do all the things and I do all the training and then they don't use it.
Mhm.
And it's like, well, the human behavior component is like super important because it's
Mhm.
like I think the biggest reason why people feel like it's a waste of their time because it's like, you know, garbage in, garbage out. Like
Mhm.
if you don't take the time to update the CRM, then the CRM can't do its job.
Right.
And I feel like processes in a way are like that because
Mhm.
it's like, well, having the best processes is not going to fix your culture issue.
Right.
Um,
Yep.
and so in a way, it's like, well, if you want them there because you know you need them and they're serving their purpose, you know, it's going to have value. But processes for the sake of processes is not going to do anything for you.
Yeah.
Like they're the same. Like I met an entrepreneur a couple months back who told me they needed an ERP, and they were like at the point where they're like, oh wait, we need to do this, and I was like, wait, how much are you making? And they're like 200K a year or something. And I kind of just told her, I'm like, get to a mill and then dance. I mean, honestly, like the point of, you know, when you're at 200K a year, you haven't done anything enough that you're like, this is how things are going to go. And the difference between how you run a 200K company versus a $2 million company is
Yeah.
so different
Yep.
that like by the point you get there, none of it's going to be relevant anymore.
Mhm.
Like an ERP is like a significant time investment in terms of, you know, integrating everything together. And like if you're talking about rigidity, like that's not it, right? Like
Yeah. Yeah.
um
Well, do you want to explain what that is a little bit more in case anyone
yeah.
is?
So basically if you're talking about like, you know, basic setup where you can have QuickBooks and like a simple CRM like a
Mhm.
Pipedrive or HubSpot or whatever, right? An ERP is basically a system that's going to plug everything together and run in all the departments of your company. So ERP would be replacing everything. So you
Mhm.
have your accounting, you have your payables, you have the raw materials, you have the manufacturing software. So like this inventory management, CRM will be into there as well. So like all the departments are going to talk to each other within the software. So it's like, well, we have received the material for this build, and then this thing is going in production. So the production management is going to be run, but then you have the costs that are tied to it with their, you know, so
Mhm.
everything depends on everything, which is in some ways really cool, but also
Mhm.
incredibly annoying if there's like 3 employees in your company. Like
Right. Sure.
you have to click, oh yeah, I have received this order. And then it's like, but then how much is this button gonna cost? Oh, it's like 3 cents. And then you're gonna have to update the cost for 4 cents because you got a new invoice and then the duties for that thing. And it's just like incredibly heavy if there's 3 people in your company.
Mhm.
Like when you get to a point where you have like 60 departments and you have 300 employees, it makes perfect sense because you want to have control over your costs and stuff.
Mhm.
You want to know, but there's like a level of usefulness. And again, like my mom works for a manufacturing company and they do a lot of M&A, and they got to a point where they bought a company who was on a different system, and then they had to merge the systems,
Uh-huh.
and it's like 2 different payroll softwares, 2 different, you know, policies and everything. And my mom is
Mhm.
HR, and
Oh, yeah.
the actual merging of the softwares and all that stuff took 18 months
Mhm.
or something, right?
It's a
um
lift.
which is like, you know, 18 months for her to do 2 different payrolls every week, you know, like, and you're talking about processes that are supposed to help you, and then you're like, my mom is doing payroll on 2 different softwares for years,
Mhm.
you know,
Mhm.
like, and this is the exact reason why people think processes are heavy and
Yep.
confusing, because they are in so many ways.
Mhm.
And you know, that use case, it probably made sense for him to have an ERP, but in a lot of places, like, because we didn't really talk about the why, and I feel like people maybe think,
Mm.
you know, why and when do you need processes, right? You don't
Mhm.
need to wait till you do $5 million. You probably should have some stuff, but I think the level of complexity is going to vary throughout time. Where you're going to start with something really simple because you have 3 employees and you just want to make sure that someone starts and can do their job really easily.
Yeah, yeah, and I think that exactly speaks to keeping the processes simple, especially if you are implementing new processes and rolling them out with your teams. They will not stick if they're going to be super complicated. Like your
Yeah.
team will just be overwhelmed, and it's like, well, why are we changing all of this? I can't. I'm out. Like
I don't think
I'm
anything has to change too.
right, right. Like it just is written down to provide the consistency, right? Like that is probably the biggest why. Like to have consistency that benefits your team and it benefits your clients.
Yeah. The way I like to go about it, and I think it's kind of like if I were to do this again tomorrow and like onboard a new client and they're like, there's too many things going on. The way I usually start is say, okay, like even that's what I did for me, right? If I were to make myself useless in my own company, like it's like, okay, what did I do today? I did this. Okay, I
Mhm,
paid an invoice. Okay, what's the process for paying an invoice? What software do we use? Which vendors do we pay where? Like some people like to be
mhm,
paid with PayPal, some people want to be paid by wire or credit cards. And
mhm,
there's like, you have rules. Like, oh, I don't like to pay credit card because this, or I
mhm,
want to pay everything because credit card because I want to maximize my points or whatever. Like
mhm. Yep.
um so I think that's you just start there. You're like,
Mhm,
well, what's a task? And it doesn't have to be complicated. Like I had a client that I worked for like 18 months or so, and a lot of the tasks were really repetitive. So I just basically started documenting every
yep.
single little thing.
Yep.
And then I trained an employee on them. And so by the time I stopped working with that client, I was doing a half-hour check-in with my client every other week. And that's pretty much all I was doing because everything else was taken care of by other people,
Yep.
which I just over time built a little repository of 3-minute videos. And it was like, click here, do this, do that. And then I would get emails, send them away, and then they would be taken care of.
Mhm,
And so if you get to a point where you can scale yourself, essentially, right? It doesn't
mhm,
have to be complicated. It doesn't have to be, and that's why I like my Excel spreadsheet because it's like cheap and there's no big software, there's no learning curve. It's like click here, watch the video, be done.
mhm, mhm.
The biggest thing honestly is like storing the videos because it
Sure.
takes room.
Yeah, it takes room. Yeah. Gosh, and I just had a thought that I was gonna share, but it just um
Went away.
fluttered away. Yeah. Um, but yeah, I just having it be like, oh, I was gonna say, if anything is repeatable, then write it down and
Yeah.
make that process. One thing that I talk about a lot with clients and business owners and whomever is don't have one single point of failure, right? And so if
Mhm.
you are the only one that can pay an invoice and you're out, you're sick for a week, or your kid is in the hospital, and like you focus on what is
Yep.
important, right? But if your business, if you're like the bottleneck, then that's a problem.
This is the whole bus test thing, right? If you get hit by a bus tomorrow morning,
Mhm.
does your thing stop
Yep.
working or not,
Yep.
right?
Yep. And
Uh,
so if you don't have those processes written down on how you are running your business and how things are working, like if you don't know how the sausage gets made, then it won't get made, you know?
let's go. Do you want to, if there's anybody who's still with us, because I've been seeing, the people come and go, and there's like a couple of people, David, who's also saying, reacting what we were saying over process things. I think
Mhm.
that's very fair. I think the line is interesting.
Don't over process your processes.
Yeah. But if there's anybody who has like a real life use case or specific questions for me or Holly that we could kind of like do some kind of what's it called? I want to do like a real case kind of thing. And even if you want, like if you're there and you want to just hop on the live and talk about it with us, I'm super down to send you the link in your
Yeah,
DMs right now. That could be cool actually.
that'll
Like
be
having
fun.
like
Yeah.
people call in and be like, here's the I wish we do that. We should do that next time.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, so
Come on, tell us like your horror stories of processes that were
yes, that would be great.
terrible.
If you have a good horror stories, I'm totally
Yeah.
down to take one. In the meantime, while we wait for the comments or questions to come in, do you have examples? Like we were talking about, quick wins and how do we make this accessible? I think honestly, my takeaway, if we're going to leave you with one thing, I would say start with, a Loom recording and
Mhm.
just explain your process in less than 5 minutes. That's probably my ideal stack is like Excel and Loom. It's probably good enough for a lot of things. Um, what's your how do you break this down into the most simplistic, bits of how do you start tomorrow if
How
you're
do you
starting
start
over?
tomorrow? Yeah. The first place I would start is writing down what do you do. Just like what you pay invoices,
Yeah.
you create contracts, you get things on the calendar. Just what is it that you do in a day, in a week, in a month, right? Just write those down. And then you can start choosing which one to flesh out. Okay, I create contracts. What do I do every time? Right? So that's kind of like step two. But step one is
Yeah.
just like recognizing what do I even do? That is a process. And I think you'd be amazed at how much you actually do that is actually a process.
Yeah. Yeah. I was watching what's his name? Oh my god. Beard muscly dude, Alex Hormozy.
Hormozy.
Okay. Like he's an acquired taste, I guess, but I feel like some of the stuff he says is still super relevant. I like the way he does the math breakdown of sometimes he does like the call people in and then do the let's fix your business together. Anyway, um he's been talking recently a lot about sheer number of volume for
Mm-hmm.
like a lot of use cases. And he was telling this woman on whatever she was doing lives on Facebook, and he was like, "So you're making this much money per live, blah blah blah. You should just do more lives." And then I feel like the most, natural reaction to you need to do 100 times what you're doing is, "But I'm already doing so much." And I think that's kind of like the answer to, well, how do you free up your time if you're going to do just the one thing that's the really valuable thing? Is
Mm-hmm.
like all the other things needs to go. Where
Mm-hmm.
does it go? You know?
Yep.
And I think the rationale of questioning the purpose of your actions and kind of breaking it down into like, and like again, finding a VA for me was like this thing where at first it's uncomfortable because you're like, I'm committing to paying someone to do things for me, and you're like, well, how is it going to be worth it? And then
Mm-hmm.
there's the question of, am I going to have enough things for them to do and this and that?
Mm-hmm.
And for me it was just like this process of discovery where I kept thinking of new things and then
Yeah.
being like, oh my god, they could do this, they could do that, they could do, and I think once you start being self-aware, like that's really the point where you need to think about it and
Mm-hmm.
realize, like, I'm not worth it, I shouldn't be doing this thing.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
um
Yeah. And the book Buy Back Your Time,
yes,
like
that's a
it
great book.
talks about this a lot.
Yes.
Like, is your time, like, how much is your time worth? Because if it's worth $500, but you're still doing the $10 tasks, like, let's put that down on paper and see
Yeah.
what you can get off of your plate, so you can make $500 instead of 10. You know.
Yeah, absolutely. How do you justify that? Like when with do you have to convince people that they need a VA, or did you usually come to you at the point where they like already know what they need?
In my experience, they usually have come to me. One thing that I have found that I've been thinking about lately is how people will often come to me and be like, "Hey, I need an executive assistant," when they actually want an admin assistant, someone who can like do all the tasks.
Yeah.
Because they play different roles. They're both incredibly valuable. Um, but like that, so that's a little bit of something that I've been noticing over the past few months.
Mm.
Um, so but that's where they normally come. They Business owners are like, I'm drowning and I need help, right?
Yeah.
And so they normally recognize that. But then once they bring someone on, it's like, well, but you can't do that one. Like I'll just keep doing that. well, here's like this little thing, but I'm going to keep doing this over here. And that's where, I was on a podcast with Chris Stevens the other day, and I was like, hey, there are like 4 levels of delegation here. And so just helping them think
Yeah.
through what processes do I do as a business owner that can be repeated by someone else that I can delegate. And then
Yeah.
we kind of like walk through the steps of delegating that to the person who can do it the best and like excel. David, who's here, has said, perfect is not the same as right.
Oh,
It's not equal.
he keeps posting things that I
I
missed.
know
I was
he's the
like, he
best.
just posted. I'm like, so he keeps posting things
Yes,
that are
he
super
does say
relevant.
that. What's my highest and best? Yeah. Yeah. So like I say that to my executives almost
Yeah.
daily. I'm like, hold on now. I see that you're doing this, but is this the best use of your time as the CEO? And they're like,
Fine.
no,
Yeah.
you're right.
I have a pile of receipts I need to take photo of because I need to update them for my accountant to do my bookkeeping. And I can't get someone else to do it because the receipts are here
Yep.
physically with me.
Yep.
And I'm just so annoyed. I was like, I just wish she could take care of it and I wouldn't have to do it. It's going
Yep.
to take me 5 minutes too, but it's just like, the mental burden of these receipts,
Right. Yep.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, this can go off into a whole nother conversation about, like you didn't start a company to
Part
take
two.
pictures of receipts.
No, that's the cost of having a company. That's
Yes.
like the thing, like in my I feel like a lot of the entrepreneurs I work with are people who start a business because they have this expertise or like, you're a baker or an architect, like you can execute on something, right?
Mhm.
And then you become an entrepreneur and then there's a point where you're like, well, I need to run a business and you can't just be baking all the time. And that's like
Mhm.
the cost of, well, do I want to be baking or do I want to be paying invoices and
Mhm.
hiring people and whatnot, right? So
Right.
there's like a moment where you need to go this way or that way. And
Yeah. Yeah. And
David
that's hard.
David just said postage is 70 for my receipt problem. That's so
That's
smart. I could
right.
do that. But it's like then I have to post it. It's like it's gonna take me less time to take the photos than it would be to put them in the mail. And we don't have posts right now. But
Um,
yeah,
sure.
that's smart. Now he said that, I was like, yeah, I could totally do that. It's like creative thinking. I never occurred to me. See, maybe we get David on next time, and we're like, I have no actually idea what he does, but he's been popping in my LinkedIn for a couple weeks, and just
Oh.
is super relevant every time he comments.
David is the wisest person I know, and he is an interim CEO, and
Oh,
has been a CEO, has been a COO. He has a book being published here in a couple weeks about leadership that lasts. About like
nice.
yeah, it's
Think we need to get
engineering
coffee.
wisdom. So yeah, he has my full endorsement.
Okay. Well, I will message David. I think we're gonna have some kind of coffee date soon or something. If you want. I'm saying it's live on the internet, like you don't have a choice, but
Yeah, right. We're publicly announcing to
cool.
the 2 people left in here. So
Yeah. Okay. Well, I mean, I think it was really good. I think it's a good time maybe to call it because people have to go back to work. And I
yeah,
mean, it's noon where you are,
it
but
is.
going back to our work day. Anyway, I really appreciated doing that with you.
Yeah.
If you guys have more questions or things we've talked about that we haven't touched on, or part two or whatever,
Yeah.
comments or like just DM us, I guess,
Yep.
directly. We're both pretty easy to find on LinkedIn and other places. And yeah, I think, I mean, I hope this wasn't as boring as what people would expect a process linked to life to be. I had fun doing it, so I guess that says something.
I had fun too. Yeah, for
Yeah,
sure.
thank you for doing this with me.
Yeah.
And yeah, again, thanks for if you're still there, an hour in. Thank you. And we'll see you on the other side. Have a good rest of your Tuesday.
Yeah. See you soon.
See you.